Sony is going a little crazy, making all kinds of gaming peripherals these days, and now they're making mice and keyboards for gamers. And at first glance, these have potential. First off, let's look at the mouse called the INZONE Mouse A. Why it is called the Mouse A, I would guess, is it's their first one, and that's the first letter of the alphabet. Inside the box, we have our mouse. We have what looks like our 8K dongle, very cool. We have, extra glide skates, that's very nice. Our stickers, some quick start guides, and we have a fairly long looking cable, 6 feet long. And a INZONE sticker, very nice. This cable is actually a nice little braided cable. It's got loose sleeving, and even just being through the labs testing, it's already got some kind of kinks and bad memory in it. But otherwise, it should be fine, especially if you're not planning on using the mouse in a wired mode, which you shouldn't because they include an 8,000 hertz dongle. Yes, this is a very fast mouse. That's great. Getting to the mouse itself, it's a pretty standard looking gaming mouse with pretty premium plastic feel. Pretty instantly comfortable shape. It's something kind of like a G Pro Superlight, an ambidextrous shape outside of the buttons on the one side, and it fits pretty comfortable in your hand. It has a little bit bigger of a hump than a G Pro X Superlight, but otherwise that feels pretty familiar to me. The clicks, they feel pretty good outside of the fact that there's a bit of difference depending on where you press on the button itself, but they're rated for 150 million clicks, which is fantastic. Reliability on mice, that's usually the first thing to go, is just get double clicks and whatnot. So that's a great start for a first try at a mouse. Although I shouldn't say first try, because Sony used to make more computer stuff. Back in the VAIO days, trying to be a little Apple style. On the top, we have our 2 buttons left, right. This middle thing is not a button, although there is a light. We have our scroll wheel, which feels just tactile enough. That's definitely like meant for gaming. If I was doing productivity stuff, I would either want less or more, but for gaming, that's just about right. The click feels like I would often scroll accidentally while clicking. I feel like I would want just a little bit more resistance in the wheel so I'm not accidentally scrolling when I click. We'll see how that translates in game. On our side, we have our back and forward button, as well as our INZONE logo. I think that's an acceptable place for a logo. It's much better than underneath your palm where it's gonna wear anyway, so I think that's actually pretty smart placement. There's not really anything that touches this. These buttons feel pretty good, pretty consistent across the whole button itself. I'm pretty happy. On this side, we have nothing but my grease. And on the bottom, we have these BTFE skates, as well as this kind of neat transparent window that sort of almost looks like it would be a hollow body design, but there's actually plastic through. So this is, I'm guessing, like a vinyl layer that I could peel. But you can actually see some of the circuitry inside of the mouse. That's pretty neat. We also have our power button. There is no wireless mode toggle at first glance because there is no Bluetooth mode on this mouse. Not a huge deal breaker for me when it comes to gaming mice. I generally only use the 2.4 gigahertz modes. But it's something to know that if you are planning on traveling with this thing, you will have to bring the dongle with you. On the front, we have our recessed Type-C port. Goes in pretty easy, and you could definitely use this mouse in this configuration, although I have doubts about the reliability of this cable. The recess in the Type-C slot is big enough that I could see some cables having trouble, but it's not so snug that it feels like only one cable in the entire world will fit. The dongle doesn't look like much. It's got its Type-C port. Boom, we're done. What's next? Keyboard. Now this is something I have a little less familiarity with. I don't think I've ever unboxed a keyboard on ShortCircuit, but these are just such a cool pair that we wanted to do them together. And I was really curious because it seems like everyone who's had hands-on with this keyboard really like it. And there's not too much in the box. We have another braided 6-foot cable, very nice. Warranty, more stickers, and that's it. Simple, effective, very nice. This is a pretty fully loaded, nice keyboard. It's got a CNC aluminum bodied, even though it has a plastic bottom that doesn't feel quite as premium. But it has foam, it's gasket mounted, and it feels, to my inexperienced hands, like a pretty darn nice typing experience. I like the sound of that. This one comes with linear switches that are custom Gatoron Hall effect ones, which I actually didn't know was a thing in the keyboard space, that there's a move towards Hall effect for all the benefits that it provides. One thing that's really cool is you can actually change the actuation point in software for these so that you can have it be really, really, really fast response times, which pairs beautifully with the keyboard's 8,000 hertz polling rate. That is crazy. I'm still just getting used to 1,000, baby. On the bottom, we have these fold-out feet. I think it's just one stage. I don't feel any locking in between. That gets it at a more comfortable angle, especially if I had a little wrist rest. But in terms of design, at least when it's not plugged in, this is a very nice, stealthy, classy keyboard, which is very refreshing in the gamer space where everything has to be so eye-catching and so colorful. And I'm sure as soon as I plug it in, there's gonna be rainbow puke, but I think this looks quite smart and handsome, just like me. Just like I'm 75% the height of Adam Driver. This 75% layout was designed in conjunction with the Fnatics sports team, just like the mouse was, which I think is kind of interesting that they don't actually feature any Fnatics branding on the box. I don't know if that was like they didn't want to sign a brand deal or what it was, but I think it's cool that they included esports gamers without yelling that they included esports gamers. I like this keyboard. To my inexperienced gamer hands, I think we're in for a good time once I plug it in and after I tell you about our sponsor.
INIU. Their Pocket Rocket P50 is a compact 10,000 milliamp hour power bank that weighs just about 160 grams. It can deliver a maximum output of 45 watts, so it can quick charge your phone, laptop, or other electronics, and with the included 60 watt cable that doubles as a lanyard, you'll get rocket power in a pocket size. Plus, it has a bunch of safety features and even comes with a 3-year warranty. Check out the INIU Pocket Rocket P50 using our link in the description today.
We plugged our mouse and keyboard in, everything worked pretty quick. One thing to note is it's a press power button, not a toggle, so it can be a little bit confusing. First thing first, we can reassign our buttons. I ain't gonna do that. We have our performance tab where we can change our DPI, our polling rate, our liftoff distance, if we wanna have motion sync or angle snap. We're just gonna leave everything at default to get the mouse's best kind of base experience, although I want to not be 1600. We are cycling through our 4 profiles, but the color doesn't change. So that's kind of interesting that it doesn't tell you what you're switching to. Very interesting. And then we have device settings. So we have our different profiles. So I could essentially turn off all the profiles I don't want. We can see our mouse software information. And then we get to our keyboard. We have our main layer and then we have our function layer. So we can assign different functions for this. We're gonna leave that as is. Performance, that's fun. Oh! Okay, in our performance settings, we can change the actuation point by key. I don't think I want to mess around with this too much, but if you are a hardcore gamer, this is pretty neat because you could have your movement keys be really fast or your ultimate abilities really, really, really fast. That's cool. I feel like there's so much danger to changing some of the keys without realizing that you've changed others. I'm gonna leave it at default, baby. We also have the ability to turn on rapid trigger, which is gonna change the speed at which your D key will override your A key, but that can be a little bit dangerous for anti-cheat, so I'm gonna leave it as is. I don't wanna have all my skins gone in Apex, you know what I'm saying, dog? Then we have our lighting settings. We have our preset that just cycles through different colors. We can do custom per key, different color. No. And then we can do off. Whoa, that's what I would do. I hate RGB. I guess for y'all, we're gonna do INZONE Original. What the heck is INZONE Original? That's a little too much. I don't mind like breathing and stuff, but when it goes fully off then fully on, I feel like that's gonna be a little bit distracting. Let's try INZONE Original 2. Nah, I hate it. I hate it. This is awful. I think like the camera, you can't really see the underglow of the keys. But in person, it looks pretty nice, although our function key is a different color. And I don't think that that's meant to be. I think this thing is, RGB is just busted. In our device settings, we have the ability to disable kind of specific keys and key combinations. So we could disable Alt-Tab or Alt-F4 if you don't want to accidentally close your game. Or if you are used to your friend rage quitting when you beat them in CS, you could disable that on their keyboard and then they can't rage quit as quick. And then we can disable the Windows key, which is actually pretty nice sometimes in games when you press the Windows key accidentally. It can be pretty frustrating if you're in a high intensity moment. And then we have our ultra low latency mode, which suppresses lighting power, reduces key input latency as much as possible, and enhances control performance. I'm surprised that the lighting power would reduce the input latency. Is that something you labs people have seen before?
That checks out.
Yeah, okay. And then we have our calibration. If we wanted to change our keycaps or our key switches, which is nice, even though they don't advertise that it's hot swappable, this is actually a hot swappable keyboard. You can calibrate and do that there. One nice thing is that there's plans for a web app, so you don't actually have to download and run this software on your computer. You just open the web app, customize as you want, and it saves the profiles to your devices. Coming hot off a Razer mouse unboxing where I had such a bad time with that software, that's wonderful. Not that this software is bloated in any way, at least to start, but having that option, fantastic. That concludes the software. Let's play a game. Okay, this feels pretty, oops. Oh God, oh God. No, I'm thinking too much. Oh God, oh God. Oh God. I was doing so good in the baby round. As a non-keyboard expert, this feels like a premium keyboard. The issues I'm having are me just panicking, not the keyboard itself. It feels like a very light press compared to what I'm used to on the keyboards I use, but I use tactile switches. And so it feels very easy, very responsive. I didn't even talk about this knob. We have a volume knob, even though we don't have our sound on. It's the nicest knob I've touched all day. It's notched, which I prefer. I like the feel of having, little tactile bumps along the way. And you can click it, although the click feels just okay. Not amazing. As a gamer who buys a pretty good keyboard, this is definitely in the realm of very nice. But let's try the mouse out. That's what I know a little bit more about. First impressions, this mouse is pretty darn great. And that makes sense. The input latency is 1.17 milliseconds over wireless and just a little bit slower over wire, but both are well within the zone of very good. Even if the keyboard is a little more impressive in its own way for input latency. The keyboard's latency was tested at 1.44 milliseconds, but as you adjust the actuation point, we got our latency to such a low point that we actually couldn't test it anymore. That's pretty friggin' cool. I gotta say, pretty quickly, I've forgotten about this mouse and it's just an extension of my gaming arm. I think this is definitely a great candidate if you're looking for a pretty darn fantastic gaming mouse. It makes sense when you look at the specs. It's got a custom PW3950 called the 3950IZ. We're not exactly sure what's different about that, but it has a 30K optical sensor, 750 IPS. It feels great. This is a great mouse experience. This is definitely something I would want to consider, except for this one fatal flaw. And it's a pretty big fatal flaw, I'm not gonna lie to you. We don't know the exact pricing on this, but the best guess as of right now is this keyboard is $250 and this mouse is $150. That's not deal breaker price, but that's not, we're gonna disrupt the market price. At $150, there's a lot of really good gaming mice that exist. Some really good ones at about half the price, just like there's really good keyboards, especially if you're using it for gaming. So these are very premium products, but I have to say, I've been very pleased to use them. They feel great. I think they look pretty great. As Sony's kind of first modern attempts to do mouse and keyboards, these are pretty exciting. I can't wait to see what they do next. Just like I'm excited for you to stick around and watch another ShortCircuit. If you like mice unboxing, why don't you check out the one I recently did on the Razer Vertical Pro Click V2. It's a pretty nifty, unique gaming mouse, and it's cheaper than this one.